Hello friends, I'm Veronica, and I wanted to film a second video following up the Foundations Yoga video that I posted and just review some of the postures and things we talked about in the first video. Very basic, very simple, although downward facing dog can be a very challenging posture. So I wanted to start out with just showing you a different variation that you can take for downward facing dog, or several different variations. So number one, you can do downward facing dog against a wall. So it's kind of like when you're stretching your calves out, you know, when the runners kind of do this runner's stretch against a wall. So place your hands on the wall about shoulder width apart, fingers spread wide, and then step back with your feet about hip width apart so that you can really feel your calves stretching. Again, you can bend your knees as much as you want to because this does stretch your hamstrings as well. But downward facing dog is meant to be a stretch for the spine. So you really want to lengthen your spine by taking your hips, sitting bones back towards your heels. So you might walk your feet in a little bit and press back towards your heels. You can also get a nice shoulder stretch while you're doing this here if you drop your chest down towards the floor. So as you inhale, feel like your back body is filling up with air. And then as you exhale, let the breath out, let your chest be heavy between your arms, and you'll feel a nice stretch for the chest muscles, the pectoral muscles, and also the latissimus dorsi, your lat muscles, and your upper back. So this is another way, and as usual, you can always bend your knees a lot. And this way you can modify your downward facing dog, and you can do that against a wall. So please modify things so that you can feel comfortable in your body as you do them. So we did practice our upright seat, and I forgot to tell you, this is referred to as peaceful seat. So we're meant to be really peaceful here. So this is Sukhasana or Siddhasana, peaceful seat. And I'm sitting on a block right now. Like I said, you could sit on a rolled up blanket because that also elevates your hips a little bit higher than your heels, than your knees. Pardon me. And we talked about resting your hands nice and comfortably on your lap so that you could then begin to formulate an intention for your practice, however you want to focus your mind while you're practicing yoga. And then another posture we talked about was Child's Pose, which is the resting posture. And that one is having your toes come together to touch knees out pretty wide as your mat. And then you can come forward. Let me just scoot back a little bit. And you can drop your forehead down to the mat. So again, here, this is a really relaxing posture that you can rest in anytime during the practice. I think I showed you a few different ways of where you can put your arms there. They can be straight in front of you, or they can come alongside the bottoms of your lower legs, and then forearms on the ground, relaxing the shoulders completely down. So you feel your back broadening. And when your arms are back here, you can always roll out the wrists. So coming back up, just a reminder to please rest whenever you want to. Take any position of comfort. So today we're just going to go into some other postures, and let's see. We'll start with Puppy Pose. So Puppy Pose is another way that you can stretch out your back and also your shoulders. So in Puppy Pose, I'm going to just turn sideways here so you can see it better from this front camera. So for Puppy Pose, you are on your knees, and your knees are hip width apart, and your hips are right above your knees. And then you're going to walk your hands out. Let me just go back a little bit. Keeping the hips above the knees, walk your hands out as far as you can, and then perhaps your forehead comes down to the mat. So widen out your arms so that you don't pinch off the shoulders. And this really stretches out the upper back, starts to open up into the shoulders. So if the ground is a little bit too far down, you can always put a book there or a block if you have it, and you can rest your forehead down on the block. But really trying to lengthen the spine is another alternative for downward facing dog. This is actually puppy dog pose. And in the Sanskrit, it is called heart chakra pose because you're lowering your heart down towards the ground. Chakra just means wheel. We have several of these chakras all up and down the body, about 7 of them. They're these vortexes of energy, these spinning discs, subtle energy body. So the one right here is your heart. So you're lowering your heart down towards the mat, getting a little bit of an opening in the upper back, keeping the hips above the knees. And you can be here however it's comfortable for you. Some people are pretty open in their backs and they can put their chin on the floor. As long as you can keep breathing, okay? And that depends on your shoulder flexibility, whether your forehead comes down or your chin comes down. Some people even get their chest down on the ground. But again, don't force anything. One posture is not better than another, just different, a different variation. So that is puppy dog pose. We're going to go into some back bends now. And we're going to lie down on our stomach. So I'm going to go this way again so that you can see me from the side. So the very first pose we're going to do is Cobra Pose. And that's your basic belly back bend. So your hands will be planted right outside of your chest. So my arms are kind of bent in this 90-degree bend. You're going to press the tops of your feet into the floor. And then as you inhale, you're going to raise your head and shoulders and press onto the hands with the elbows pointing backwards. And then exhale and let yourself come back down. So strengthening the back muscles here. Inhale, raise the head and shoulders. And then exhale to release. Try that again. Inhaling, raising your head and shoulders off the mat. Try to keep pressing your toes down into the floor. And you might even check how much you're using your back muscles to lift you by maybe hovering your hands off of the mat. Squeezing the shoulder blades together. Rolling the shoulders back. And then exhale, release, and come down. So that is Cobra Pose, very basic back bend. If you come up onto your forearms, tuck your elbows close to your rib cage. Elbows will be right underneath your shoulders, and the forearms are parallel. Spread your fingers nice and wide on your mat. Again, the tops of your feet are connected to the floor. And then zip your belly button in to your spine so you're protecting your lower back, tightening up your core. This is Sphinx posture. So we're up on our forearms. We still are doing a belly back bend. And then lengthen through the crown of the head so that you feel like your spine is long, all the way from your tailbone to the crown of your head. And energize your fingers like you're pressing your fingers into your mat as if you could pull your heart forward between the gates of your biceps, your upper arm muscles. And that is Sphinx Pose. So our next belly back bend is going to be Locust Pose. In the Sanskrit, that's Shalabhasana. For Locust Pose, come all the way down onto the belly. You can put your forehead on the ground to start. Reach the arms straight back towards your feet with the palms facing the ceiling. And then as you inhale, lift your head, lift your shoulders, lift your palms up toward the ceiling, and then lift your feet up like you're floating. And just being supported on your belly. Take another deep breath and rise a little higher. And then exhale, release yourself all the way down. And you can turn your head to one side. You can wobble out the hips if that feels good. We are squeezing the gluteal muscles as we raise up too, so you can let that go. You can windshield wiper your feet from side to side if that feels good. And then let's try that Shalabhasana Locust Pose one more time. So start with the forehead on the mat. As you inhale, press your feet into the floor, lift your head, lift your shoulders, lift your palms upward toward the ceiling, and then lift your toes up like you're flying. Feel like somebody's pulling you from front and from the back, really lengthening your spine. And then exhale, release yourself down, turn your face to the other side maybe. Feel free to windshield wiper the legs, back and forth, side to side. So another variation of this locust pose, you can do this one with a little bind. You can grab your hands, you can interlace your fingers for this bind. You're going to let your index fingers come together, cross your thumbs, your palms are together, and you're going to grab this little bind behind your back right at your sacrum. So as you're lying on your stomach, take your arms right at your lower back. Go ahead and grab, interlace your fingers, cross your thumbs, let your index fingers stick out. Place your forehead on the ground for a moment. To start, as you inhale, begin to straighten the arms out so that you're pointing your index fingers down your tailbone, and then roll the shoulders back, lift your head and shoulders, opening through the chest, and then lift your feet up. So this locust pose is a bound locust. You're holding on to your hands so that you're opening through the chest, spreading out across the collarbones. Real heart-opening posture here. Take another breath. And then exhale, release. Let your hands go. Turn your face and wiggle out the feet. Wiggle out the hips. Let's try that one more time. So bound locust. Grab your hands right at your sacrum. Interlace your fingers. Let your index fingers extend. Cross your thumbs, palms together. As you inhale, press your feet into the floor, lengthening the arms, rolling the shoulders back, lifting head and chest and shoulders off the floor, and then lift the feet up. And then you can lift your hands up off your back any amount that's comfortable. You might be right on your back. Your arms might be a little bit bent. Try to roll the shoulders back, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and point the index fingers straight down your tailbone towards your feet. And then exhale, release. Let that go. Let your hands go. And wobble that out. Okay. So there's another belly back bend called bow pose. So if this is accessible for you, you can try this. And if not, you can keep doing locust pose or sphinx or cobra. We'll try the bow pose. So if you want to try bow pose with me, start out on your belly. You're going to bend both of your legs. Reach your hands back to grab your feet if you can. Once you grab the tops of your feet, inhale, press your feet into your hands to lift off. So you're opening through the chest, engaging your quadriceps muscles of your legs, and still breathing. Directing your feet up towards the ceiling and trying to keep the knees kind of close together-ish. And then exhale, slowly release. Wobble out the hips. Feel free to windshield wiper your legs. And there is one more that I forgot that would come before all of those back bends that we just did, called upward facing dog. So as you go through your yoga classes, you'll do these things called Vinyasas. So that's when you go from a downward facing dog, maybe to a plank pose, which I'll show you next, and then through any one of these back bends of your choice. Okay, so upward facing dog, your hands are going to be just like they were in Cobra. So right on the outsides of your chest. And then you're going to press up, inhale, come up to your Cobra, and then keep pressing so that you come up onto straight arms, shoulders above the wrists, and you're resting on the tops of your feet. So the toes are pointed. And again, zipping that belly button in and tight to your spine, to protect the lower back. And then you can look up towards the ceiling. Don't let your belly sag towards the mat. Keep it nice and tight. And this is your upward facing dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So from here, we're going to come up to a child's pose to take a little rest from all those belly back bends. Go ahead and let your feet come together, knees out wide. And release your forehead down towards the mat. You can feel a nice stretch in your back here after all of those belly back bends. Take a few breaths here in your resting posture, nestling your rib cage right between your thighs, letting your sitting bones be heavy onto the heels. You can feel free to roll out your wrists if you feel like it, curling your fingers into your palms. And then let's come on up. So let me look at what else I have planned for you today. Oh yeah, we did talk about plank pose. So, plank pose is a core exercise. It's the top of a push-up. So you're going to be on the balls of your feet. Hands are shoulder width apart, shoulders are right above the wrists. Your belly is firm and engaged, so you're not sagging like this, nice and tight. And you can modify this plank pose by bringing your knees down to the ground anytime. So here's a variation of plank. And then here's another variation of plank. If you like, and your wrists bother you, you can come down and do a forearm plank. So your arms would be just like your Sphinx posture, with the elbows underneath the shoulders and the forearms spread about shoulder width apart with the fingers activated and the belly activated. So just doing planks are really strengthening for your core. So you can choose. This is a variation. Probably this variation might be harder than up here. But for some people whose wrists bother them, forearm plank is a great variation. So if this is pretty intense for you, feel free to do plank on your knees. So a lot of times when we do vinyasas, we're going to be lowering down from a plank. So if you're in a plank here, you can lower the knees down, bend the elbows straight back, and lower the chest and chin down, and then slide forward. Take a breath in, coming up for your Cobra Pose. And then take your breath out, coming back to your Child's Pose. Open your knees, toes together, forehead down to the earth. So that is one variation of a vinyasa. Let's try that again. So we're going to come into our plank posture, whether you're in a forearm plank or in a full-on top of a push-up plank, or if your knees are down on the earth. So that's all your variations of your plank. To go into your vinyasa, you're going to lower down from wherever you are. So if you're here, your knees are already down, chest and chin lower. So you look like a little inchworm, and then you slide forward, untuck your toes. Inhale, roll the shoulders back, open through the heart, Cobra Pose. Exhale, coming up through your tabletop and back to your Child's Pose. Exhale. And take 3 to 5 breaths, or however long you need to in Child. So, let's take a different variation of that vinyasa. So if you want to take it a step harder, you can energize your practice as much as you want to. Be wherever you are. So here's a variation from full plank pose to a vinyasa. And instead of lowering with knees, chest, and chin to the ground, we're going to lower through something called Chaturanga. So Chaturanga is when you're going to lower down slowly, bending the elbows straight back so you're hovering at 90 degrees. And then you lower all the way down to the belly. Then take an inhale breath for your Cobra Pose, or any other one of those back bends that I showed you today. You might take a choice of coming up to upward facing dog. Or instead of those, you might come up for your choice of Sphinx pose. Or Shalabhasana, Locust Pose. Or Bow Pose. So these are all choices. And then you can always exhale. You can come up through table. And you can rest in your child's posture. So these are all belly back bends that we practiced today. So there was about 5 of them. And that gives you lots of different choices for when you're doing vinyasas through your practice, if you're flowing in a flow class. And you're going to find that you are going to build a lot of flexibility and strength with your arms, with your core. Yoga is just strengthening for all parts of your body. So that is going to be your 5 different belly back bends that we did, and modified planks. And next time I'll introduce the sun salutations, Surya Namaskara, which is a way that we warm up in a yoga practice. And those are some flowing movements that we'll do next time. So for today, thank you for joining me for your second foundations class. Practice some of those postures on your own, and I'll see you next time for our 3rd video in foundations. Namaste.